Hello and welcome to this preview of the Space Extension Mod to Factorio. Let's get into a game and have a look about what this mod is all about. Autosave seems to be my most recent save. I'm working on 12.19 to test the mod, using a few other mods as well, the FAL, the modern version of RSO for this initial testing, that's the Space mod, the Fat Controller, and the upgrade planner. So let's get in there and see what this mod adds to the game. And as you can probably imagine, well, I've had to build quite a large factory. The intention of the mod is to significantly extend the end game by involving a lot more launches into space and building and research. So what actually happens when you research the technology for the rocket silo, you'll get this additional button, and what this gives us is a three-part build program for what you're building in space. So the first part is building a satellite network. That just involves launching 7 satellites. So instead of just the one satellite that you need to launch to complete the base game as it stands right now, you instead need to launch 7. Then once you've launched those 7, you get access to actually building your dry dock. I'll probably so you've got these 2 bits, dry dock structures and dry dock command. I might well change this to assemblies because that's sort of what it is really. So 12 more launches of some new components that you need to build, and then finally once that's done you can build this lot. And you can build it in any order. So at the moment we're waiting on the final component, and that's a fairly significant component to build as well, but we need the tech for it, and that's what we're teching up right now. Speaking of tech, what's actually happened with the tech tree is I have added a bunch of new techs down here. So rocket silo unlocks space assembly, which in itself doesn't do much. It just allows you to build assembly robots used in space and build space construction. But notice that the cost is significantly higher than the highest of the existing raw game. That's because research is one of the key things to keep your factory going, and that's what it's all about really, to find a way to explore your factory and have it do something meaningful for a longer period of time. That's really the reason why we are doing what we're doing. What I'm looking for at the moment is just trying to find what I think is the most expensive standard science, which should... I'm just a little bit confused with these new icons. There we go. I think that's the most expensive of the standard sciences to date. And you see it's only 2,600. Well, these new ones, that one's 6,000. This one, 12,000. Most of these are 12,000. Oh, there's a 6,000. So a few cheaper ones, 12,000, 12,000, 24,000, 12,000. And then the real biggie is actually getting this faster than light. So I've actually made this quite a challenge. Something that's going to keep your science going for quite a while. As you can see, it's 250,000 and there's 4 of them. Another 250,000, another 250,000, and the one we're working on at the moment. So there's basically 1 million research required to complete the game with the space mod. And that's quite a satisfying achievement. Now I broke it down like I have with these 4 components, mainly so you get a bit of a saving on the oil cost and of course the alien artifacts. I didn't really want you to need to farm alien artifacts for a huge amount of time, and I haven't really farmed any at all for my game. I've just done what I normally do in terms of clearing the pollution cloud. So, what sort of factory do you need to be able to get to this point? Well, quite a big one. The FPS and UPS is worse because I'm running fraps. They're mainly sitting on about 40 actually when I'm in the game without fraps running. And this is an i7 liquid cooled 32 gig RAM, overclocked, so it's a decent beast. How about if we look at the mini-map and scroll right out as far as we can go? That's as far as we can go, so that's as big as my factory extends currently to be able to do this. In truth, I'm using a lot of belt, perhaps more than I need to, and that may well have something to do with why we are running at only 40 instead of a higher UPS and FPS. But anyway, such as it is, let's have a look at the factory. As you can see, I've almost finished this final requirement, and then I can build the final component and launch, and that's all good, but let's actually have a look. So first of all, obviously I've got a fairly significant science build. I can't even scroll out far enough for you to see all of this. This is an added on extension to the science. Each of these are blocks of 10, so it's at 40, 80, 120, 160, 200, 240. There's 240 science labs down here, and up the top we'll wait for a break between all of the trains coming through. Up the top we have another set of science. And yeah, once again I apologise for the slightly jerky nature of it. We're only getting about 14 frames a second, unfortunately. So yeah, here's the initial science, which is a mere 60, so 300 labs in total. And as you can see, if I zoom in, I've got them all with productivity modules just to help with the resource requirements, and likewise of course with alien science. 40% increase there, another 20% increase in the science labs. So yeah, that was all built to accommodate the science requirement, and quite frankly the science requirement is probably the most significant one. The final component that we'll end up building, which is this faster than light drive, as you can see it needs quite a lot of modules, but in fact that's in the order of about 30 times the initial, before we did the whole space thing with Factorio, the old rocket defense. It needed 50 speed modules and 50 productivity module 3s I think, and a little bit of extra stuff. So basically we've increased that 30-fold. I think it's 30-fold, 100 to, oh, maybe 15-fold. Well, it's still quite a lot more than what it used to be, but if you have a look here, I mean I've already built that, it's just sitting waiting. It's the science that's really the big one, and the science is a real test to how strong your factory is at production, and you know, for a long period of time rather than just short bursts of high production. So how do we do it? Okay, let's head over to the stack where we are actually smelting, because that's probably a good place to start. I'm not saying this is the best way of doing it, I'm just giving you a tour while the time on the final research finishes. So here's where iron smelting takes place. Basically we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I didn't bother putting these on electric. Basically I thought I'd just stick with the old coal, it's fine. And this and the steel smelters, except that I found that going much further than about here, the blue belt couldn't supply all of the smelters, so I have changed to some of the coppers, and has changed over to electric smelters. Anyway, so we have eight sets of iron smelting, enough to compact 8 belts of iron. Then we also, on a blue belt of course, we also have 8 lots of copper. The first 4 are to compact blue belts. Well, in fact all of this is on blue belts I think. Actually no, I tell a lie. These 4 don't actually need blue belts. So maybe I could get away with like 6 belts of copper perhaps, but better to be safe than sorry. So the capability of expanding the copper is there, but these are blue belts, as you can see. Enough smelters to basically fully compact a blue belt, and the steel furnaces take slightly less room, so that's why they're a bit shorter. Now, how do you get enough resources in here? Well, obviously it's a bit of a train-fed solution. We have two terminuses here for the iron coming in with 141 trains. Also, they have a little bit of a waiting area. And here comes another one in. How's that? Is that a full train? Yeah, 6k coming in. That one's waiting, another one coming in, so it's fairly busy here. This is where the coal comes in for the main base. It doesn't look like much, but there's a reason for that. And basically the reason is we have one power station here. So each of these are, I think, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, or 100, I think it might be 120 megawatts provided within the base, and I've got a secondary power station as well that we use. But we'll have a look at that as well on our tour of the base. Coming over to copper. Copper's a very similar kind of setup, maybe a bit cleaner in some ways actually. So we have our 2 feeds into copper. I've actually gone with a throughput, and I think this is a bit tidier than what I've done with the iron. The trains come through here, feed in twice. It's all blue belt extracted. There's an 8-way balancer. Oops, it's close. Somewhere along the line, I think. There's certainly a 4-way there, then the second one feeds in, and is it up here? Yeah, 8-way balancer across the belts, especially with iron, copper, when I've got 4 on blue belts and 4 on yellow belts. It's very helpful to have that. So pretty much a continuous flow of copper coming into the factory as well. Right. So what about steel, you're asking? Well, steel I've actually built further up the line. And I could have concreted all this over, I know, but concreting over large sections of the factory seems to be a good way to... Actually, upgrading the belt seems to be a good way to make the the UPS really crawl. So if you come up here, this is where I built the steel. We originally had a plot of iron here. You can see a little bit of infrastructure left, not so much. And then for a while I was feeding it from the initial line here, but I needed the iron in the main part of the factory, so that's kind of been short-lived, and I've created an additional unload for raw ore just up here, one simple unload platform, just with its own smelting to directly feed the steel. That's pretty much necessary. Demand on steel is just a little bit high when you get to the 250,000 blue and 250,000 purple science that we're doing at the moment. Now the reason why we have such a long track here is simply when I first started the factory, this was kind of where I started, but there was a lot of forest here, and chopping a lot of forest is not fun, so I knew that I was going to need a lot of lines on the main bus, so I started sort of down in this area where the forest was a lot clearer, so it was a lot easier to set up the smelting there, and very longer than I'd normally have belt over to where another clearing was, which is where I started the main bus. So let's have a look at our main bus. 8 lines of iron coming in, 8 lines of copper coming in, our steel, bit of stone, because this is actually sort of laterally added as well as our stone production here, and its own little unload. We don't really go through a very vast quantity of this stuff. It's mainly, well, the stones for the rail line, and the we need a bit of the stone brick as well. It's not particularly huge. So how do we use our 8 lines? Well, basically we have circuit production here, and that's basically the first 4 lines of copper and the first 4 lines of iron get turned into 4 lines of green. Then we convert 2 lines of the remaining iron into gears, because gears is actually, I never used to do this, but gears is a more condensed form of material, and it does actually make a lot of sense, because most of the uses of iron, not all, but most of the uses of iron are actually gear wheels as you go down the factory. So then we get to the initial science, and I actually did all of the base game science just using the 5, 6, 12 formula with 60 factories, and that worked reasonably well. And I kind of doubled it up just when I got into the more expensive space extension science. But this setup actually can't really quite cope. It's mainly, the problem is here with the smart inserters. The smart inserters, this is okay up to about 12, but it's really, the supply of material into this sort of network is not sufficient. It's mainly the greens. We can't get enough greens into this assembly machine for this to have the throughput to feed all of these machines. It's probably not doing too badly at the moment. In fact, it's getting to about this blue machine, but all of these aren't getting any action at all. So I tried to do better with my redesign further down, and here we have the red science. Basically the throughput here is required, this is all used specifically up here, and yes, if we were getting faster smart inserters, we potentially would need all of this capacity, but as it is, the second copper coil is not needed all the time. And a little bit of speed up, if we zoom in a bit so you can see a little bit of speed up in the factory for the plastic. Then we have the batteries. Now this ratio is actually correct, and it's never causing a drama. Even if we cleared out all the batteries, it would sort of catch up and backlog. So 5 sulfur to 2 sulfuric acid to 10 batteries, and that should be the right number also for our requirements up here. Coming further down, we have some of our utility builds. I completely separated out smart inserters. If you use the same smart inserter build up here for your supply of smart inserters, you will have even more issues, because as you can see, it's smart inserters that are causing the issue with science, so we don't want to do that, so I've got them separate. So here we go with all the inserters plus assembly machines. Assembly, the more advanced assembly is done further down. I don't use any this level 2 machines anymore, it's only 3s. And I kind of like this concept of all these things next to a path. Logistic robots, they can take their time delivering stuff to you, so sometimes it's better just to run here and grab the stuff that you need. So the war machine, it's kind of evolved over time. We have enough capacity here. I think again it's all based on ratios, so 8 of these capsules to 4 of these capsules to 1 of these capsules are the good ones, the destroyers. And I've restricted that in no way, because you need a lot of them. So this is just filling up, and I can grab 3 or 4, 500 at a time and go to work on the biters. And I think I have actually restricted this one, but I probably shouldn't have. Let's just have a quick look. there. Yeah, I've restricted the shotguns to 300 shells, but that's fine. So then pipes and engines and these electric engines making robots. This lot, the set, I've set them to just 800 storage all the time. I use the constructors far more than the logistics. As you can see, I've got only 1,000 logistics robots running around, but 3,300 constructors, and if I needed more, I just grab them from here. This is just in the main network. The outposts all tend to have a collection of constructor robots as well. So moving right along, what else do we have? Tanks, just for a bit of funsies. In the early sort of game, I used the tank for a bit. In combination with poison capsules, it's quite effective. And so the explosives, but obviously once you start getting the big biters, tanks tend to lose their effectiveness fairly fast, and I wouldn't even bother with the behemoths. Our rail build here, yeah, you don't need too many corners, but you need zillions of these ones. And then more red circuits, because obviously you don't want to take from your research red circuits, and it's not going particularly flat out at the moment, but when you really need it, when blue's in full demand, green is probably your biggest problem with blue, but yeah, the demand from red here goes right through the roof. And down here we have our module build. So this again is done to ratios. The speed modules, because the assembly machines and one of the space components needs speed 1, we've doubled that up, so it's 8 not 4, and we've got a little provider chest there making the use of all of them just in case. Then productivity modules, what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is it 5? 5 productivity 1s going into, it should be 2.5, but yeah, 3. You can't really do 2.5s unless you double it up, and there's not really a need for doubling it up. So 2.5 productivity 2s into 1 productivity 3. And then the effectivities, I've also got a collection for effectivity 2s, although I excuse me. But I don't care that much about putting effectivity 2s all around the place. It takes too long. So just a few key places. Most of the actually, we'll have a look at the power grid just for a sec. Oh, we're actually slightly short on power. That's interesting. I didn't realise I was running short on power. Never mind. Yeah, so none of these have any effectivity modules in, and if I cared to run around all of the uses of them, it might, you know, save me a bit of power, but that's fine. I'm not really using solar. It only really comes on during the day. I put it in because when you rely just on coal, if you run out of coal, it can take a bit of effort to restart the whole system, so having a bit of solar in there to help makes it a lot easier to kickstart. So I've used no accumulators whatsoever, except where they're needed as interim components and other components. There's not a single accumulator in the factory. Anyway, moving on, a few more of the things that you need to keep the factory going, or the power poles, oil barrels, roboports, all the types of special chests, steel furnaces, more rail stuff, trains. Here's where we do this is when we started doing them. We'd already built all of this other stuff. The assembly machine 2s. So, 3s rather, yeah. it takes in 2s and builds 3s. And our build for obviously your blue belt, I used the yellow belt from science because you get enough in the initial stages, especially if you've only got 5 and 6 red and green. It's easy enough to draw on that for yellow belt. I didn't use red belt at all, so you can see I'm not collecting red belt anywhere. I just went, if it needed more than yellow belt, straight into the blue belt, and this has managed to keep up with demand fairly well. Radars. We do actually use a bit of the old solar panels, not just for going into the space side of things, but also I use them out in the map. If I go to the map, you can maybe see when, here you go, I think is it turning on? I've got little radars dotted around the perimeter that are powered by solar power, basically, to help show me what's going on. So I needed them for that, and that's why I carry a few around with me. And a blueprint. Go over here, you can see the blueprint. So a simple blueprint, 5 solar panels, a radar, and a pole to spread it all around. Very handy to drop a few of those in the wild as you clear the biter bases. Concrete, there's easily enough there to spread a lot more concrete around, but there's no point.